It does not care about your GPS, your youth, or your plans for the future. When you step off the trail and the canopy closes above you, you are no longer at the top of the food chain. You are simply a fragile piece of biology, completely at the mercy of the elements. In the spring of 2014, two young women from the Netherlands learned this terrifying lesson. They walked into the dense, cloud-covered mountains of Panama for an afternoon hike. They never returned. But unlike the mysteries of the past, these women did not just vanish into thin air. They left behind a digital diary of their agonizing final days. Through their cell phone logs and a series of chilling, pitch-black photographs, we can piece together a timeline of absolute terror. It is a case that has baffled digital forensics experts, survivalists, and law enforcement worldwide. Some call it the modern Dyatlov Pass. This is the deeply unsettling mystery of Kris Kremers and Lisanne Froon. Kris was 21 years old. Lisanne was 22. They were best friends, roommates, and recent university graduates. Kris was outgoing with striking red hair and a vibrant personality. Lisanne was taller, more athletic, analytical, and an aspiring psychologist. They had spent months saving money working at a cafe in the Netherlands to afford a 6-week trip to Central America. Their plan was to learn Spanish, volunteer with local children, and explore the country. In late March, they arrived in the small, picturesque mountain town of Boquete, Panama. Boquete is a paradise for expats and backpackers. It is surrounded by lush green mountains, coffee plantations, and dense cloud forests. But beneath the beautiful scenery, the environment is rugged and incredibly unforgiving. Due to a scheduling error with their volunteer program, the girls found themselves with a week of free time. On Tuesday, April 1st, they decided to hike a popular local route known as the Pianista Trail. It is a relatively straightforward hike. It takes a few hours to reach the summit known as the Mirador, which offers a stunning view of the surrounding valleys. The girls were lightly dressed for a sunny afternoon. Kris wore a red tank top and denim shorts. Lisanne wore a green tank top and hiking boots. They shared a single light blue backpack. Inside, they packed 2 cell phones, a digital camera, 2 bras, a water bottle, their passports, and $83 in cash. They had no survival gear. No machete, no flashlights, no extra clothing, no medical supplies. They only intended to be gone for a few hours. We know exactly how their hike began because of the photos on Lisanne's digital camera. The initial pictures show 2 happy, carefree young women. They are smiling, taking selfies, and enjoying the beautiful Panamanian wilderness. The timestamps on the photos show them making steady progress up the trail. At approximately 1 o'clock in the afternoon, they reached the Mirador summit. They took smiling photos at the top. The sky was clear. The hike had been a complete success. All they had to do was turn around and walk back down the exact same path to Boquete. But for reasons that remain entirely unexplained, they did not turn around. Instead of heading back, they crossed the Continental Divide. They continued walking down the opposite side of the mountain, stepping off the tourist trail and plunging deep into an area known as the Serpent River. This is indigenous territory. It is a maze of steep ravines, fast-moving rivers, and dense, unmapped jungle. It is not a place for tourists. The final daytime photo of Kris was taken at 1:45 in the afternoon. She is looking back over her shoulder at the camera, walking across a shallow stream. Her face looks completely normal. There is no sign of panic. But less than 3 hours later, the nightmare began. At 4:39 in the afternoon on April 1st, a terrifying shift occurred. Kris's iPhone dialed 112, the international emergency number. 12 minutes later, Lisanne's Samsung phone dialed the exact same number. Neither call connected. There was zero cell reception deep in the ravine. We will never know exactly what happened in those 3 hours between the final photo and the first emergency call. Did one of them slip and fall into a ravine? Did they encounter a deadly snake or a predator? Did they simply realize they were hopelessly lost as the jungle began to grow dark? The sunset in Panama happens quickly. By 6 o'clock, the jungle canopy blocks out the remaining light, plunging the forest into total suffocating darkness. The temperature drops significantly. The girls, wearing only tank tops and shorts, spent their first night completely exposed to the elements. When morning broke on April 2nd, they tried again. At 8:14 in the morning, Lisanne's phone dialed the emergency number. At 10:53, Kris's phone did the same. Over the next few days, the phone logs tell a heartbreaking story of desperation and discipline. They did not panic and drain their batteries. They turned their phones on, checked for a signal, dialed the emergency number, and then carefully turned the phones back off to conserve power. They were thinking clearly. They were trying to survive. On April 3rd, the situation escalated. There were multiple attempts to call for help, but still, no connection. It was on this day that the first massive search operations began back in Boquete. Helicopters flew over the canopy. Local guides combed the trails. But the jungle is vast, and the canopy is incredibly thick. The girls were entirely hidden from the sky. On April 5th, a deeply disturbing detail appears in the digital logs. Kris's iPhone was turned on, but the PIN code was not entered. For the next several days, the iPhone was repeatedly turned on to check for a signal, but the correct PIN code was never entered again. What does this mean? Had Kris succumbed to her injuries or the elements? Was Lisanne desperately trying to use Kris's phone but didn't know her passcode? Or is it possible that someone else entirely had the phone? The battery on Lisanne's Samsung died on April 5th. From that point on, only Kris's iPhone was used, sporadically turning on without the PIN, until its battery finally died completely on April 11th. For 11 days, someone was alive in that jungle. For 11 days, they fought a losing battle against starvation, dehydration, and exposure. But the most chilling piece of evidence did not come from the cell phones. It came from the digital camera. 10 weeks after the girls vanished, a local indigenous woman found their blue backpack. It was sitting on a rock near the edge of the Serpent River, miles deep into the jungle. The backpack was in suspiciously pristine condition. Despite the region experiencing weeks of heavy, torrential rain, the electronics inside were mostly dry and functional. The cash was untouched. The passports were intact. Both of the girls' bras were found neatly packed inside the bag. When investigators extracted the data from the camera, they found the daytime photos from April 1st. But they also found something else. Between April 1st and April 8th, the camera was never used. But on the night of April 8th, 7 days after they disappeared, in the dead of night, the camera was suddenly turned on. Between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning, a staggering 90 photographs were taken in complete pitch-black darkness. They were taken roughly every 2 minutes. Most of the photos show nothing but absolute darkness, illuminated only by the camera's harsh flash. Raindrops can be seen streaking across the lens, but some of the photos reveal glimpses of a horrifying reality. One photo shows a rock face deep in a ravine. Another shows a branch with plastic bags and candy wrappers attached to it, possibly laid out as a makeshift SOS signal to catch the attention of helicopters. Another photo shows toilet paper and a mirror placed on a rock. But the most disturbing photo of all is photo 509. No, wait. I must correct that. The most disturbing photo is the one that shows the back of Kris Kremers' head. The flash illuminates her red hair. Her hair appears clean, not matted by a week of sleeping in the mud. But near her temple, there appears to be a small amount of blood or a wound. Why were these photos taken? Were they using the flash as a light source to see in the dark? Were they trying to signal a rescue aircraft flying overhead? Or were they using the flash to scare away a predator that was stalking them in the darkness? And then, there is the mystery of the missing photo. When digital cameras save files, they assign them a sequential number. The daytime photos end at number 508. The night photos begin at number 510. Photo 509 is completely missing from the memory card. It was not just deleted. It was permanently eradicated from the device in a way that requires connecting the camera to a computer. Who deleted photo 509? And what did it show? 2 months after the backpack was found, the physical search yielded horrifying results. Scattered along the banks of the Serpent River, searchers began finding fragments of bone. They found Lisanne's hiking boot. Inside the boot, her foot and ankle bones were still perfectly intact. They found Kris's denim shorts, neatly zipped and folded, resting on a rock high above the water level. In total, they found 33 bone fragments belonging to both girls. But the condition of the bones completely shattered the official theory of an accidental death. Lisanne's bones appeared normal for someone who had died in the jungle and been subjected to the environment. But Kris's bones were entirely different. A piece of Kris's pelvic bone and a piece of her rib were found to be completely bleached white. Forensic anthropologists stated that this bleaching was not caused by the sun. The bones had been exposed to a chemical substance like phosphorus or lime, which is often used to speed up decomposition. Furthermore, the bones were scattered over a massive area, separated by miles of treacherous river. How could their remains be so heavily fragmented, yet their backpack be found in nearly perfect condition? The Panamanian government quickly ruled the case a tragic accident. They concluded that the girls got lost, fell into the river, died of exposure, and their bodies were dismembered by scavengers and the strong river currents. But for independent investigators and the families of the victims, this explanation is deeply flawed. It ignores the perfectly preserved backpack. It ignores the missing photo 509. It ignores the chemically bleached bones of Kris Kremers. And it ignores the statistical impossibility of a wild river completely destroying 2 human bodies while leaving a cheap blue backpack completely undamaged. This has led to a much darker theory: foul play. Did Kris and Lisanne encounter someone on the trail? The area where they disappeared is known to be used by drug cartels moving narcotics through the dense, unpoliced jungle. Did they witness something they shouldn't have? Were they abducted, held captive for days, and eventually murdered? This would explain why the phone logs show a pattern of being turned on and off. Perhaps their captors were checking the phones. It would explain the chemically bleached bones, a common cartel tactic to destroy evidence. And it would explain why the backpack was found neatly arranged and undamaged. Someone planted it there to be found. Another theory points to local predators, individuals who prey on naive tourists wandering too far from the safety of Boquete. We may never know the absolute truth. The Panamanian authorities closed the case, eager to protect their vital tourism industry from the stain of a double homicide. The jungle has reclaimed whatever evidence was left behind. But the digital ghosts of Kris Kremers and Lisanne Froon remain. Their story is a chilling reminder of the fragility of modern life. You can have a smartphone, a camera, and a map in your pocket. But when you step into the ancient, silent darkness of the jungle, you are entirely alone. 90 flashes in the pitch black, 11 days of silence, and a mystery that will haunt the mountains of Panama forever.